We're here at Sound Off at the beautiful conservation area in Woodbridge, and we're speaking with Rachel Stewart, who is our liaison and guide for this afternoon. And you're in for a treat, and I'm going to let Rachel tell us all about where we are, what's going to happen, and what we can look forward to for the day. Enjoy. Rachel.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, my name's Rachel Stewart, as Gerard said. We're here at the Kortright Centre for Conservation, one of TRCA's properties in the GTA. Today is a beautiful day. We're just coming to the end of the Maple Syrup Festival. We've had, I think, about 4 weeks of demonstrations showing people how maple syrup's been made over the years, through the indigenous times, through the settler times, and then to the modern times. We're demonstrating. We're going to go have a look in a minute, I think. Yeah, it's just a beautiful day, and that we're really happy to be here with you, sharing a little bit about how you make maple syrup.
We're here with Dave now, and he's going to give us an insight on exactly what to do, how to do it, and what not to do, also apparently with maple trees that Rachel was just telling me, which I think is fascinating. Dave, please take it away.
Yeah, the thing to understand about maple syrup is it doesn't start as maple syrup coming out of the tree. It's actually going to come out as sap. Sap comes out in this outer layer of the tree, called sapwood for a reason. The inner layer isn't producing it anymore. So when you're actually putting a spile in a tree, it's only about that long because you're only hitting into that sapwood layer. You don't want to go too deep or else you can cause infections of the tree. There's no immune system happening in the center of the tree anymore. But it comes out as sap. What sap really is mostly water, about 97%. And so to put that in a clearer way to understand, it's a 40-to-1 ratio of water to sugar. And so if you were to actually boil down 40 of these filled with sap, you'd be left with just one of these of syrup. Or a more disappointing way to put that is, you have one of these of sap, you boil it down, you get a tablespoon left of syrup. And so there's a reason why it costs so much. There's actually a couple of ways that people used to boil this. And the traditional method that the early Europeans would have done is using cauldrons, large kind of like witch's cauldron. Have about 3 of them. It'd take about 24 hours to actually boil it down. And the way that they probably did it before that would be to make a birch bark basket. It's the same way that they make birch bark canoes. It's actually watertight, waterproof bark. And so in the same way that, funny enough, it can actually is the best for starting fires, which you need to boil off the syrup. You also have this material that you can make a basket you can actually cook over the fire with. The water from the sap is dissipating the heat so quick that it won't actually reach that flash point when the bark would catch on fire. Unless these little bits on the bottom, these frayed sections, those will certainly catch. And so the way that the Europeans would have done it is with something metal like this. We think that this is probably how a Native American may have done it, by carving something with wood, because it's a resource available. Why not? There's so much of it. The modern method, though, is to actually use plastic. So now that we actually have something that's this readily available and so useful, you can run hundreds of feet of tubes through the forest and pop these into the trees, about hundreds of trees, and then they all lead to where you'd be boiling it at the bottom of a hill, a sugar shack, which is a fun word to say about 10 times fast. And a sugar shack is at the bottom of the hill so that the gravity is bringing all the sap down. It's like a water slide for the sap. The reason why also you have so many hills in these maple forests is with this kind of hilly terrain, it's really hard to develop and build here. So that's why these forests are really the ones that have lasted so long. When the early Europeans came and would have done a lot of logging, these are the hardest areas to hit or to build houses in. So they're still left over as these large maple stands. So there's one thing that you shouldn't do when you're tapping a maple tree, and that's probably pick one that's a little too young. The sap is being used by the maple tree as energy, of course, and that's what we're using it as. We're collecting a little bit of that energy on its way from the roots up into the branches. And that happens every spring when it gets below -5 at night, +7 in the day. you start getting this freezing and thawing situation that's actually part of turning the systems of the tree on, waking up that tree and pumping that water up. But since it is the energy of the tree, would it make sense to take from a tree like this big? Is that going to be taking too much sap, too much energy? Yeah, it's obviously too young and you're going to be causing some damage. That tree might not grow at all this year, or you might actually even kill it off. And so we have a way to tell, that's a rule of thumb, really, of how to tell how many times you could tap a tree. Tapping is to put a bucket on a tree or one of those tubes I had mentioned before. So this is actually 80 centimeter circumference. That's the smallest that we can tap a tree. And once we go over 80 centimeters, it's every 40 centimeters. So in the case of this tree, it is 120 centimeters, so that's 2 tap. But you can see how big a tree has to get before you really start putting 4 buckets on. That's a massive tree. A tree about this size, the minimum, would take a while to grow too. That's about a 40-year-old tree. So they say plant pears for your heirs. They take so long to grow. Maple trees though, you gotta plant them for your descendants. You don't really start a new maple forest. You have to just take care of the ones that are already around.
Like you just need me right now.
Long and McQuaid, where the music begins.
So you own a business, have an event you want people to know about. You want to spread the word to as many people as possible that your product or service exists. Call AdWorks International. AdWorks is an advertising agency which utilizes professionals in radio, television, and print advertising to help you get your company's message across. Your ad will be noticed by more people, more quickly. AdWorks from concept to completion will deliver an ad that works. AdWorks International. Call 416-832-7293.
Hi, we're here with Mbabazi, and she's going to tell us a little bit about what she's doing and how the Aboriginals likely did things. And we're going to let Rachel set it up first, and then she's going to take it over to Mbabazi.
We're here at the Indigenous site. We call this our Sweetwater site, and we have a fire here, and this is where we're showing people how maple syrup would have been cooked in Indigenous times. So because they didn't have any metal came over with the Europeans in early settler times, the cooking vessel would most likely have been made of wood. So we've got a wooden trough here. You can see it's got rocks in it and some sap, which I think is actually water today, but that's to show that, and there are rocks in it. So what would have happened is that, because you obviously can't put this vessel on here, the rocks would have been heated up in the fire, and then the rocks are transferred over into the sap to heat up the sap. Simple process. That's all it is when you're making maple syrup, whether you're doing it this way or the modern way. It's just evaporation, so you're getting rid of all that water and keeping that tiny bit of sugar in there. So we think, though, with this method it would have taken a very long time. It's not a very fast boil, that you would never get it to a fast boil. You can see it steaming, but it wouldn't have boiled very fast, so we think it would have taken about a week to do that. The other thing to mention is that they wouldn't have had like utensils. You don't have tongs or anything, so we think that they would have used something like this. So antlers from deer or perhaps sticks to move the rocks from here, from the fire into the trough. And you would have had to keep replacing the rocks because they're going to cool down. As soon as you take them out of the fire, they're going to start to cool down. So it's a long and arduous process, but just tells you how delicious maple syrup is, and they were prepared to do this for that long and to go to that amount of trouble. The other thing to just mention is that I don't know, like when you're looking at a maple tree, how would anyone have known that there was something as sweet and delicious as maple syrup that you could make from what was inside the tree? So we don't fully know, I think, Babazi, how that happened, but my guess is that what happened is that, you know, woodpeckers, people were using axes, trees get little nicks in them, the sap would come out, and I think that animals like deer, squirrels, rabbits would have been smarter than us, and they would have known that that was delicious, and they would have been licking at the holes in the trees, and that would have given people the idea that there must be something in there that's worth exploring. I think there are legends as well that we can tell, and maybe Babazi would do that for us if you would like.
So this is called the legend of Chief Wokesis. So it starts with a man called Wokesis. Every morning he'd go get his birch basket, fill it with water, put it under a tree so his wife could use the water to cook. And then he'd go hunting. So for 3 days in a row, he came back with nothing. He couldn't find anything to hunt. And on the third day, he got really frustrated. So he took his axe and he threw it into a tree. And the next morning, he was really, really eager to go hunting. So he forgot to fill his birch basket up with water and leave it under the tree. So he went off hunting, and his wife came by and saw the birch basket, and it happened to be filled with water. So she took it and began to cook with it. So when he came back, he found an animal on the fourth day, and she cooked the animal using the water from the birch basket, and it tasted sweet. So he asked, "Where did you get this water from?" And she said, "I used the water that you left for me under the tree." And he said, "I forgot to put any water in the basket this morning." So they went back to the tree and they found that there was water coming from the tree, and that was tree sap. So that was the legend of Chief Wokesis, one of the theories about how early indigenous people may have discovered sweet water or maple tree sap that they turned into maple syrup.
Babazi, you're going to tell us a little bit about the pots that they may have used that are pictured there?
For sure. So through correspondence with indigenous groups, we've actually learned that clay pots were used to make maple syrup instead of wooden pots that you wouldn't be able to put on the fire. And the really cool thing about these pots is that they stir themselves. So they're really, they have ridges on the inside, they're really bumpy, so when the sap starts to boil, the bubbles will come to the top and they'll get popped on the sides of the pot and go back down, and it'll just continue stirring itself, so you don't have to stand there and stir it. You can just leave it on the fire, and at the end of the day you'll have your maple syrup. And the wooden pots were actually used to make maple sugar. So once your maple sap, your maple syrup gets really thick, you can use one of those wooden pots to scrape the maple syrup, pour it into the wooden pot, scrape it for about 20 minutes, and that will get it to be maple butter and then maple sugar, because the pot is really absorbent and you're getting rid of some more of that water.
So this kind of wooden trough, that's what we would have used for
Yeah, so that's actually what they would have used to make maple sugar. The clay pots would have been used to make maple syrup. And the maple sugar was transported and kept in these birch cones made out of birch bark, and this is what you can put a string on, tie to a stick, and take for trading, or just keep it for yourself.
I don't know, Tony. We've been here now for a half an hour. I don't see any maple, do you?
Well, hold on. No, I don't taste anything.
I don't know.
Okay, let's come back in a minute.
We'll try back in an hour.
Yeah.
As the sign indicated, the early European settlers, this is how they would have done things. And again, we're going to let Rachel give us the overview.
Yeah, sure. So you can see that we have 3 cast iron kettles here, which is how the early European settlers would have cooked their maple syrup. So this is our first kettle where the sap would have come from the trees. They would have emptied the buckets from the trees into this kettle here. And you can see that this looks just pretty much just like water. Just that little bit of sugar, that 3% of sugar that's in the sap is in there. You can't see it. 97% water. This is where, yeah, the process started. So the would have been cooked for 8 hours in this kettle, and then they would have transferred it into the middle kettle. And I'm just going to show you what's in here. And you can see this is starting to show. You can start to see that sugar caramelizing. You can see there's a little bit of brown in there, so it's starting to cook. And this would have been another 8 hours in that kettle. So 8 hours and 8 hours. We're at 16 hours now. Then I'm just going to flip around. This would be the third kettle. This is the finishing kettle. So another 8 hours in here. I'm going to show you what's in here. There you can see that it's darkening here and it's really beginning to cook and it's almost ready to be maple syrup. So in the settler times, they would have watched this kettle really, really carefully so that it doesn't go too much. So they would have looked to see what kind of boil it was doing, what kind of color it was. And then the oldest woman in the family, the grandma, would have known. She would have been the person, or the great grandma, she would have been the person who would have been the advisor, who would have known when it's ready to take off. And when it's ready, if you've ever made toffee or caramel, you'll know that you got to be really careful. If it goes too far, then it sticks to the bottom of the pot, and it's not going to be any good. It's going to burn. So you'll find out when we go to the modern demonstration. 104 degrees is when maple syrup boils. They wouldn't have had thermometers in settler times, so they would have just, as I say, it would have been the oldest woman in the family who would have known when it was ready, and she would have told the younger women who would have been cooking it to take the kettle away from the fire. They would have poured it off, and then they would have had their syrup. However, it's worth saying that they probably more likely than making syrup. Where have we got? Yeah, this. They would have been making maple sugar. So, maple syrup needs to be kept in the fridge. Once you've opened it, you need to keep it in the fridge. Pioneers and settlers did not have refrigeration, so rather than making syrup, they mostly would have made sugar. So they would have poured it still would have been liquid. They'd have cooked it to a little bit above the 104, more like 118, I think it is, degrees. Again, they wouldn't have known that. They would have just watched and known when it was ready. They would have poured it into a block like this, then it would have gone hard, a mold like this, and it would have gone hard and made a block like this, which they then could have broken up and ground into sugar like this, maple sugar. And that's what they would have used. This would have been their only sugar that they would have used to make cakes, cookies, any kind of baking. That's what they would have used. They also would have been able to trade this with other families. So that's really the settler way of making maple syrup.
like you just need me right now.
Long and McQuaid, where the music begins.
So you own a business, have an event you want people to know about. You want to spread the word to as many people as possible that your product or service exists. Call AdWorks International. AdWorks is an advertising agency which utilizes professionals in radio, television, and print advertising to help you get your company's message across. Your ad will be noticed by more people more quickly. AdWorks from concept to completion will deliver an ad that works. AdWorks International. Call 416-832-7293.
All right, so we're now
at 66.5% sugar, not the 3% that it was before. So, cheers.
Cheers. That's delicious.
That's the good stuff.
Oh my goodness.
Buckets of sap and 1 sap here.
Sugar Shack, isn't that a song? I think so. Just can't remember who did that song.
We do 2 in a row.
Was it?
If she's not comfortable.
Hi, I'm Jessica, and this is our Sugar Shack here at the Kortright Center. In here we talk about modern maple syrup production. So that begins with tubing our trees instead of using buckets, which is how they would have done it in the early settler period. The tubes are gravity fed into our main storage tanks, and then they're fed into our evaporator. The evaporator is a more efficient process than they would have used previously. It has a large firebox, so all of the energy from the fire goes straight into our maple syrup, and it allows it to heat up quickly. We feed the fires pretty regularly, we keep it hot, and we're trying to get our maple syrup reduced down to a point where it is 66.5% sugar. We know that that's the magic number, and it will reach 104 degrees when it gets to that point. So we have a nice thermometer on the front of our evaporator to keep track. The process involves evaporation. We've improved from the early settler period to the modern day. They've improved the system and made it more efficient by increasing the surface area. So the boiler pan allows for more surface area evaporation. As the steam leaves, we reduce our liquid down, and then we move it over to our finishing pan. In the finishing pan, we cook it a little more slowly to ensure it doesn't burn, and then it can get bottled from that point. Before bottling, it goes through a filtration process to remove some of the sediment and minerals that build up through the cooking, and then it's ready to take home and eat.
No, still nothing. We've been here for 3 hours. Yeah, okay. All right, ready? You squeeze that. All right. I don't know. No, that's just a reflection. Nah, just the sunlight playing tricks on us. Yeah.
Rachel, what's the problem here?
Guys, it's the end of the season. You're too late. It's not, you're gonna have a long wait.
Even if we squeeze the tree?
No, it's
who'd have thunk it, eh? Oh well, next year, Kortright Center, when do you open?
It'll be in March next year, March 2025.
There you go, March 2025.
I'm coming with my tongue.
And our buckets. See you next year.
A murky bucket.
Put it on your calendar now, March 2025, Kortright.
A murky bucket.
You won't have to do what we're trying to do. You just get all the maple syrup you need.
It'll flow.
It'll flow. Ebb and flow. Bye. That's Tony. I'm starving, and we're going to eat now because this is a treat after an entire day of shooting this wonderful film for you at the Kortright Center in Woodbridge.
Maple syrup.
Yes, and cheers for the maple syrup. We pour it on our pancakes, right? Yum, yum, yum.
You know that this ain't corn syrup.
No, this is definitely not corn syrup. And then what you do is you lift your pancake up and you pour it under the other guy.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh, where'd the forks go?
Your fork's right there.
Oh, there
so
it is.
May the forks be with you. Can we get sued for saying that?
May the forks be
May
with
the
you?
forks be with you? Yeah.
No.
Okay. All right. So we're digging into our pancake lunch, I guess.
Maple syrup. Oh, I should have saved some for my coffee.
Ah, there you go. So if you want some really good pancakes, come on down to the Kortright Center in Woodbridge.
And don't be asking for the Kortrights because it's not Bonanza. What was it, Jed Clampett? No, what was the guy's name from Bonanza?
Jed Clampett? I think it's Lauren Green.
Lauren Green.
Yeah.
Not Graham Greene? No, that was the guy that was in part of the Indian tribe there.
These are good pancakes. They really are. Nice and airy. And
Airy?
Yep.
I knew a guy named Airy once.
They have a good flavor. Very good flavor.
I wonder how they compared to the pancakes you used to get at the C&E, at the Army exhibit there. You used to get free pancakes and syrup.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
At the Army exhibit.
Yep.
There you go.
Yeah, I gotta get a glass of water somewhere. I'll just go drink out of the sapling tree.
That's it.
40% water. Or something like 40%?
Well, way higher than that. Like in the beginning, it's 97% water, I think they said.
97% water.
I think so. In the very beginning, before they start to boil it down.
Yep.
But it does take 40 of whatever to make one of whatever. So if you had 40 of these in the beginning, you'd only end up with one of these in the end by the time it's turned into maple syrup.
Yeah, 40 of these.
To make one of those in maple syrup. And you still got maple syrup in there, by the way.
Well, I thought I licked it all.
Ah, there you go.
Nope.